Welcome to We Are Every Woman, the podcast, and I am Ruth, your host. And today we have a very special guest that we're going to be talking about, and it is Mom. And it fits right into We Are Every Woman. So today, as we explore who we are, one specific job that we have is being a mom. So I want to talk about how we honor our parents. So we explore a timeless truth, how we honor our parents. Let's start with Jesus. He honored his parents in every way. He did it through respect, obedience, and care. Even as a young boy, a young man, he fulfilled his duties faithfully. He showed us that honoring our parents is not just about words, right? But action. Action rooted in love and reverence. Okay, now let's look at the world today. Many cultures have ways of caring for their parents, like providing financially or living together, which it looks like we may be having to do that the way the world is going. But some miss the heart of true honor, showing both care and respect while upholding the parent's dignity. You know, as you get older, I know I've had to take care of my aging father and making sure that his dignity was upheld. So I know a lot of you guys out there can relate to me and to what I'm talking about. So what is the right way? It's a combination of both honoring mothers through care and advocacy and honoring fathers through respect, legacy, guidance, just as Jesus modeled. It's about love and integrity and embracing the roles of parents. The roles that parents have played in shaping our lives. It's almost like a dear mother, and you want to thank your parent for playing a role in your life. So you can also look at this segment as that. Did I honor my mother and my father? Again, whether it's through a kind word, attentive care, or honoring their legacy, our goal is to reflect the heart of God in how we honor our parents today. The right way, the Jesus way. And we are going to get into the Jesus way in just a little bit. So let's get into some of the countries and how some of the countries have different cultures. Let's start with honoring and caring for parents in an African culture. And I'm going to kind of read and talk through some of it. So we're going to talk about Africa. And that word is it philal? It's a philal. Let me pronounce that right. Philapita. I wrote that down. Hold on one second, because I know it's a law. It's a law that is in some of the different countries. Filial petit. Filial petit. It is emphasizing the deep respect, obedience, and devotion to your parent. Filial petit. And I hope I'm saying it right. If not, you can look it up and you can see how to pronounce it, which I did, but that's what I got out of it. But anyhow, so in many African societies, there is a strong expectation that children will care for their parents in old age. And I wanted to put this in here because when I go get my hair done and they're braiding my hair, you know, some of the African women from Ghana and different places, they talk about how they have to take care of their parents. Their parents do not have to work after a certain age. So let's talk about it. In many African societies, there is a strong expectation that children will care for their parents in old age. This comes from traditional values, emphasizing family loyalty, respect, and communal responsibility. It's not just a nice gesture, it's often seen as a moral and sometimes social obligation. And you can get that from the Britannica.com, okay? And read a little bit more about that culture. Okay, so what is the culture practices? Okay, so financial support, children often provide money for food, housing, and health care. Once parents are older, this is the things that they do. Physical care. Adult children may live with aging parents or ensured they are attended to if they are frail. Decision making respect. Older family members' advice and wishes are highly valued, and children typically consult them on family matters. So they go to their parents for family matters, advice. Retirement by cultural expectation. As your source mentioned earlier, as far as what I was talking about, the young ladies, in some communities, parents may no longer need to work once they reach a certain age, and usually it's about 50 into the 60s, because adult children take over financial responsibilities. And I really got a kick out of that, because in your 50s and your 60s, that is kind of like your prime. And hey, that's really nice for your kids to be able to take care of you at that age where you can still enjoy your life and they're grown and they can enjoy theirs as well. Some people will look at it as maybe a selfish act, but I really don't. I really don't. But what do you think? Okay, let's look at variations across the countries. Across the countries. West Africa, Nigeria, Ghana. Children are expected to contribute regularly, especially if the parent is retired or elderly. East Africa, Kenya, Uganda. Extended family networks often help grandchildren. Even the grandchildren help. They'll contribute. South Africa, Zimbabwe. These are the things that happen in these different countries. But traditionally, adult children care for aging parents through urbanization and modern life. You know, traditionally, adult children care for aging parents through urbanization and modern life. Sometimes complicate this. So it gets complicated. Through modern life, it gets complicated. Why is that? We're going to talk about it. Even in urban areas, cultural expectations often remain, but practical adjustments are made. Like if they're living in another country, they send money. If living apart, they send money. Respecting and caring for parents is often reinforced, socially and spiritually. It's like a community reinforcement. So in some cultures, honoring parents ensures blessings for the family, or even is seen as a duty before God and ancestors. And you can check that out in africaoxford.com. Let's talk about modern shifts. Migration, urbanization, and Western lifestyles can change how strictly these traditions are followed. So it's different in different countries, and some of them really follow it very strictly. So even so, many families still make it a point to support aging parents, either directly or through remittances. Okay, so in many African cultures, it is common and expected that children honor and take care of parents in old age. Parents may retire from work, like I said, around 59 to 60 they have here, and adult children contribute financially and provide care. This practice is tied to respect, family duty, and community expectations. And you can really tell because 59 and 60, that's really young. So this is really a respect thing. And if you want, we can go a little deeper and we can go into some more different countries other than Africa. So let's talk about countries with strong cultural and legal obligations for adult children. Like China, cultural biases. Their values emphasize that same filial piety law, a deep respect and duty to care for parents, like I had just stated. Practical expectations. Adult children are expected to care for parents once they retire, usually around 60 for men and 55 for women. And this is in China. The legal aspect. The Chinese government has a filial piety law in some regions requiring children to visit or support elderly parents. Okay, so how it looks. Okay, children provide financial support. They live nearby if possible and help with health care. What about India? Cultural biases, Hinduism, and traditional Indian culture. It is like stress, respect, and duty toward parents in India. Practical expectations. Parents often retire in their late 50s or early 60s, and adult children are expected to contribute to household expenses and take care of parents' health and their needs. What does that look like? A joint family system are common in more rural areas. Parents often live with adult children. Urban families may provide financial support. Okay. And there's a reference from BBC.com. What about Japan? It says cultural biases. Traditional Japanese culture values. Is that Oyokoko? But they're with that filial responsibility as well. Excuse me, I'm kind of hoarse, you guys. Practical expectation. Adult children are expected to care for parents around retirement, age 60, 65. That legal aspect, what does that look like? Japanese law allows parents to demand support from their children if neglected. You hear that? Japanese law allows parents to demand support from their children if neglected. What does that look like? Many elderly parents live with their children. Our children help with medical and daily care. And that's true, I've seen that. I know you guys have seen that before. What about South Korea? Cultural biases. Values influence strong filial duties. Practical expectations. The adult children care for parents in their 60s and older. So what does that legal aspect look like? It's the filial obligation. Law requires adult children to provide for parents who cannot support themselves. And that is a reference of KoreaHerald.com. What about in the Philippines? Cultural biases. The family-centered society with strong respect for elders. What is the practical expectation? Children often take care of parents financially and personally once they retire, late 50s and 60s. What is the legal aspect? The filial responsibility. Law mandates support if the elderly cannot provide for themselves. Okay? Family decisions. This retirement triggers care. Once parents retire in their 50s and 65, children's duty becomes active. Some countries have laws to reinforce support when cultural expectations alone aren't enough. What about multi-generational living? Often adult children and parents live together, especially in rural and traditional areas. Okay, so that's a little background on some of the other countries. And let's get back over here where we are. And let's just get back over here with the more morals, where we differ in this country. Okay. So it's like when a mother who once gave, we're going to talk about, do I want to talk about that first? Yeah, let's talk about this first, and then we're going to go scriptural. So, like a returning mother's responsibility in scripture. Like, what if your mom gave you up when she was young because she wanted you to have a better home and she couldn't take care of you? So she gave you to a more prominent family that could do for you. And then later in life, as she got things going for herself, she came back to you. And then later in life, maybe you guys were friends, or maybe she never completely got you adopted by somebody just sort of taking care of you, what have you. But she came back in your life, and she got older. So would that be your responsibility to take care of her? Let's talk about it. So it's a returning mother's responsibility in scripture. So when a mother who once gave you up comes back into your life as an older woman, it can raise a lot of questions. So are you obligated to care for her? Is it a moral responsibility? What about legal perspective? Well, in most countries, laws requiring adult children to care for parents assume an ongoing parent-child relationship. So if a parent abandons you, the law usually does not force you to provide support, even in countries with the philia responsibility laws, like we spoke about, China, South Korea, India, or the Philippines. These laws primarily cover parents who raised you or had a continuous relationship with you. So in Western countries like the US, Canada, or the UK, there's typically no legal obligation at all. So cultural perspective. In many traditional cultures, such as in parts of Africa and Asia, adult children are expected to care for elderly parents. However, abandonment complicates these expectations. Communities may encourage you to help, but is often seen as a personal choice, balanced with understanding and boundaries. And I can get with that. Okay, so what about moral and personal responsibility? Even when there's no legal or strict cultural requirement, caring for a returning parent can be a moral act of grace and forgiveness. You might provide financial or practical help. You may set healthy boundaries, decide how much involvement is wise, given the past. And I know I've seen a lot on that. Like, you watch movies and you see it. Even you may see it in person. When you see it in person, it's kind of really sad. So let's talk about scripture teachings. So the Bible reminds us in Exodus 20:12 and Ephesians 6:2-3 to honor our father and mother. And honoring does not mean ignoring your hurt. It can mean showing care, respect, and integrity. Even when relationships are complicated, it's just showing the way. In case you lost your way, in case you know someone who lost their way. Proverbs 23:22 encourages listening to your parents in your youth and caring for them in their old age. Scripture calls us to love and forgiveness, balancing grace with wisdom. So in the end, caring for a parent who returned is often a choice, guided by consequences, compassion, faith, reflecting God's heart, even in challenging family dynamics. And because it says we're supposed to forgive, and if we don't forgive, then we may not be forgiven, right? Okay, so let's talk about this man. This showed us the way, okay? This is the way. If you're lost about, should I take care of my mom? Should I honor? What is honor? Should I respect? What is respect? What does that look like? For a long time, it's like, okay, honor. I got it confused because I was like, well, it says honor your mom and your dad, and your days should be longer on this earth. But then it says, when you get married, you should leave your mom and your dad, and you should go with your husband or your wife, and that's where you make your home at. So I was like, okay, I'm kind of confused. But then as I thought about it, I was like, okay, well, it just takes a strong person. As a man, it takes a strong person. It takes him to be a man. It takes him to be, a godly man. It takes him to be a husband, a father, and a son. Those are different roles you have to play. And sometimes a lot of people don't know how to play more than one role. So that's when the confusion comes in. They don't know how to be a God-fearing person. I'm just going to talk about the man. A husband, a father. Dear Mama, I honor you, not just for the days you were strong. I honor you, but for the nights you were tired and kept going. I honor you for the sacrifices I didn't see, for the prayers I didn't hear, for the tears you hid behind a brave face. I honor you for carrying me before I had a name, for loving me before I knew your worth, for standing when life tried to bend you. Even when I grew and walked away to build a life of my own, your voice remained in my wisdom. Your strength echoed in my decision. Leaving was not forgetting. Growing was not dishonoring. Becoming did not mean abandoning. I honor you now with my words, with my respect, with my care when you need it most. I honor you, not because you were perfect, but because you were mine. Dear Mama, I stand today because you once stood for me. And for that, I honor you. Welcome to We Are Every Woman, the podcast by Ruth, Part 2. What happened? How did Jesus honor his mother? How did he set the example for us to honor his mother? Since we are every woman, let's talk about it. So in Gospel of John 19:26 and 27, while Jesus was on the cross, I know you guys remember, he saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved standing nearby. Remember? And he said, "Woman, behold your son." Then he said to the disciple, "Behold your mother." And from that hour, the disciple took her into his own home. Even in the middle of unbearable suffering, Jesus made sure his mother was cared for. But how did Jesus honor his mother? He took responsibility for her security, even at that moment. Jesus was the eldest son. In Jewish culture, the eldest son had responsibility for his widowed mother. Joseph is not mentioned at the crucifixion, so Mary was likely a widow. Jesus ensured she would not be left vulnerable. That is honor, protecting her future. So he transferred care to someone trustworthy. He entrusted her to the disciple, and traditionally understood as to be John. He didn't just feel love, he made a practical arrangement. And this is honor. Love expressed through action. He did this after beginning his own mission. Okay, Jesus had already left home at about 30, remember? He began his ministry. Luke 3:23 tells you he was not living under Mary's authority anymore. Yet leaving home did not mean abandoning responsibility. So what does it mean to honor your mother? The command comes from Exodus 20:12, Ephesians 6:2 and 3. Read it. Honor does not mean obey forever as a child. Stay under parental control after marriage. It does not mean that. Never form your own household. It does not mean that. Okay, what about leaving to marry? When you leave to marry and it says, you're to leave your parents and you're to go, with your husband or your wife and y'all be as one. Scripture also says in Genesis 2:24, like I just said, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife. This means you leave in authority structure. You leave in authority structure. You create a new primary family unit. You create a new primary family unit. Your spouse becomes your first loyalty in earthly relationships. But leaving does not mean disrespect. It does not mean neglect. It does not mean abandonment. It does not mean emotional coldness. The balance Jesus shows. Jesus left home. He started his own mission. He was not controlled by his mother, yet still ensured her care. Y'all hear me out there? So honor after marriage, what does that look like? Okay, what does it look like? Respectful speech, millennials, emotional regard, practical support if needed, protection of their dignity, okay, but healthy boundaries. Your wife becomes your priority. Your mother remains honored. You get it? Your wife becomes priority. Your mother remains honored. Y'all get that? So leaving your parents means shifting authority, not counseling honor. Jesus left home, but he never left responsibility. He never left responsibility. You know? So that is the biggest picture, okay? The biggest picture that some people cannot navigate. So if you heard something that touched your heart in this podcast, pray for the podcast. If you heard something that you would like to share the podcast. Because some people just don't know what honor is. They think that when I get married, I have to go and take care of my husband and my wife and my mom. I'll go see her when I see her. But it doesn't. That does not mean that. That's not so. So anyhow, you guys, I just thought I'd do a podcast on mom, honoring mom. Moms come with a husband, honoring our parents, and maybe later I'll do a podcast on father. I hit it on it, but maybe I'll go stronger on it. But it may not need to any more on the father, because I think that hit the nose. You know, usually the man is the head of the house, and the man is to, take care of different things. So, yeah. But anyway, thank you guys for listening to We Are Every Woman, the podcast by Ruth. Thank you. Peace out. God bless.